if you're not up on current events, I'm going to give you, I guess, a recap on what's going on, particularly on Twitter and in the tech market right now. So basically, what's going on is, well, I'm going to have to start from the beginning. So it's 2020, 2021, we had ChatGPT launch, and it basically broke the internet overnight. Everyone was using it, and everyone began investing in different AI, GP and AI platforms. One of the leading companies is NVIDIA, and the CEO of NVIDIA, he's speaking to Americans when he says this, and he says that coding is no longer needed. It will no longer be needed in the future. Basically, we have no-code tools and AI that will take over and do the job for us. Americans should invest their time and energy into other professions. Fast forward to 2024, the end of 2024, I should say, and we have a bunch of Americans trying to figure out why they can't get hired and why they're losing their jobs to workers overseas. And so we have a tweet from Vivek. He chimes in and he sparks this whole debate on Twitter when he says this. I'm going to read it to you here. It says, the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over native Americans. When he says native, he says it's like a quotations native, as in people who are born in America, not actual Native Americans. So over Native Americans isn't because of innate American IQ deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 1990s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college. It starts young. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ, over the jock over the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World or Zach and Slater over Screech in Saved by the Bell, or Stefan over Steve Urkel in Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. Fact, I know multiple sets of immigrants. Hold on, I'm going to pause and say he has a point there. Because we're going to really dissect what he says. We're not just going to go ahead and judge him off of what everybody else says. So he's saying that our culture does not value nerds, the jocks more, the pretty people more. So we don't really value our intelligent people. So I agree with that. Growing up, I identify as one of those, I guess, quote unquote, nerds, even though I'm not as far stereotypical as any of the ones mentioned in these shows and pop culture references. I still consider myself to be one of those nerds. And just when I notice, especially as a Black person, that you see people in my community more celebrated for sports and entertainment rather than their contributions to math and science and engineering. And basically, someone like me, even amongst my friends, people joke and say things like, oh, you sound white, or you're the whitest Black person I know. And that's simply because I don't carry myself. I'm a rapper or wannabe gangster, and I don't fit that stereotype. And that stereotype is kind of praised when you look at who's the people who everyone wants to be. Everyone wants to be the bad boy. Everyone wants to be the pretty hot girl. And nobody wants to actually build anything. So I can understand where he's coming from there. But at the same time, I feel like he's coming from a place of I was never picked, so now I'm going to have my revenge of the nerds moment. Ha ha. Now I get the last laugh, me and my immigrant friends. So I'm just going to continue to see what he says, because I'm just going to really dissect what he's saying. But I feel like he's speaking from a place of, ha ha, I get the last laugh. So, fact, I know multiple sets of immigrants in the 1990s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity. And their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. More movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chilling, more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. So basically he's saying all of his immigrant friends growing up, their parents weren't letting them hang out and watch TV. They are always studying, or they were involved in some science group or some science competition. They had books instead of TV. And growing up, I had a blend of that. The TV shows were there, but a lot of times I ended up choosing books rather than TV. I didn't want to watch BET, whereas like other people did. And like people today, a lot of people, my friends, they consider me to be one of the smartest people in my friend group. But it's all about how you spend your time. And I think he has a point there, in how you spend your time matters more than your innate IQ. So he's not necessarily saying Americans are less intelligent. He's just saying that Americans do not praise math and sciences. They kind of shy away from them, and they don't raise their kids to take an interest in these types of activities will achieve. So basically, he's saying the reason these other kids from other countries are great and they're doing better than American kids is simply because their parents are Joe Jacksoning their kids into success. And I'd say that's they're not completely wrong on it. You look at a lot of American kids today, they're fed junk food and they're raised in front of the TV, in front of video games. I even see my nephew now, he watches a lot of TV and a lot of it's just nonsense on YouTube. And when he's with me, I don't allow him to watch that stuff just because I just don't think it's feeding his mind. And I try to keep him playing learning games, but I know a lot of times it is easier to let a kid sit and just vegetate in front of a screen while you go off and do what you want to do in your life. It's easier to do that. But if you're a kid and you're growing up on whatever nonsense they're pushing out, you're going to grow up to be an adult with a lot of nonsense in your brain. So I'm not saying I agree, but I can look at that and see. But at the same time, I also see how other parents would look at those kids and say, hey, those kids never have any fun. And I was looked at that way too a lot of times. Like, I've never been a huge go out to party at clubs, but at the same time, I did every now and then. But I know a lot of my other friends, they go out every weekend, and I understand we live very different lives. So I can understand where he's going from here. So we're going to continue here. So it says, now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 1990s, or even now, who raised their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. We've awakened from slumber before, and we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievements over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. That's the work that we have cut out for us. Rather than wallowing in victimhood and wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence, I'm confident we can do it. So he's not necessarily saying that Americans are inferior. It's just that our culture praises inferiority. And I still think he's having a little bit of his revenge of the nerds moment. Like, haha, me and my immigrant friends all studied while you guys are now trying to figure out why you can't get jobs. He's definitely having that I took the long way home from school vibes. But at the same time, if you look at the validity of what he's saying, he has a little bit of a point. A lot of Americans, we take the easy route rather than rolling up our sleeves and doing hard work. And we grow up to figure out, oh, why can't we achieve our dreams? And it's because a lot of our parents, they had it easier economically, but also they worked hard because they were raised in a different environment. They didn't have the luxury of TV and electronics to vegetate in front of. They didn't have Netflix and video games. They didn't have a bunch of social media influencers to follow. And now come to today where we were given our participation trophies and told we can do anything we want, be anything we want. And we grow up and we say, how come I can't be Alex Hermosi or Zendaya or whatever celebrity you want to compare yourself to? So I can agree on that part. So Elon Musk, he actually chimes in and he says that investing in Americans is actually hard. It costs money and time and effort to make a person productive. It's a short-term net loss. It's much easier to bring in skilled workers who might not do quite a good job, but will work for a fraction of the cost and be happy just to be there. So what I'm taking away from that is it's cheaper to hire foreign labor. They're willing to do a lot more for a lot less, and you can get away with treating them a lot worse. And I will also say they're probably more appreciative because, yeah, they're happy to be there. They may not be paid as much as an American-born citizen, but they're getting paid a lot for if you compare back to their home country. So it's essentially they are the technical slaves. In reality, Mexicans get treated terribly in this country. Like, I've had to fire lawn services just because I didn't like the way the guys were talking to their workers. Basically, I see Elon kind of viewing people from a certain country, from another certain country, in the same way people look at the Mexican population as cheap labor. Because a lot of them are here on either work visas and some of them are here illegally. And this is not just a Mexican thing. There's other nationalities doing that, but in the tech space, that is becoming a norm as well. You see a lot of people from India that are both here legitimately and illegitimately, Middle East, and just literally all over the world. But I know it's more heavily for the Twitter argument. A lot more people are more heavily focused for India because I got to hand it to the Indians, man. You guys are dominating the tech sector. This is no shade towards any race. I'm just pointing out things that I observe and facts. You guys, but as an American, it's still not in my favor. You could tell he really felt the way when he typed that out, because that's a long paragraph to say. But at the same time, I look at a bunch of immigrant billionaires are telling us not to invest in tech. And now, fast forward to today, and they're telling us that we just don't have a culture for it. So it wasn't the machines that were going to replace us. It was the immigrants that are telling us to be lazy and then blaming us for being lazy. That's what I get. Let me know what you think.